Welcome to the Debt Matters Podcast, where we help Canadians find solutions to their debt with licensed insolvency trustees from across Canada. I'm Wayne Kay, and in today's show, we're going to talk about how to find the best debt consultant, which is going to be the right one for you. So what does a debt consultant do specifically, and are some better than others? What do you look for when choosing a LIT? And how important is it that the LIT be local? My guest today is Leigh Taylor from LCTaylor, licensed insolvency trustee with offices in Winnipeg and Kenora. Thanks for being here, Leigh. Leigh Taylor back on the show again. Leigh, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for being here.
Well, it's a pleasure being here, Wayne.
We can always get into these great discussions. I mean, the show is all about helping Canadians, find these solutions when they are in debt. They're in trouble. They don't know where they're going to go. They don't know what to do. And for this show, it's all about education. And with licensed insolvency trustees across the country, I have just learned so much. And I think today's show, I would like you to help us to learn more about what a licensed insolvency trustee does.
Sure. Licensed insolvency trustees are licensed by the federal government, and they have strict regulations. They have educational background checks that are required. So you have to write exams, you have through oral boards and these sorts of things. They want to make sure that if you are given the right to call yourself a licensed insolvency trustee, you're an expert. You know the field, and you know sort of what all the answers are. That's the theory.
Okay, and it's fully regulated, which I think is quite amazing. And LIT is different than a debt consultant?
It's really important, and I've emphasized this a lot, because a debt consultant is just a general category, and it's anybody that wants to hang up their shingle and say, oh, come to me for advice. I'll charge you, and I'll give you some sort of advice. So debt consultant can be really confusing. There's really... at the risk of oversimplifying it, two general categories. One is licensed insolvency trustees who are regulated. They have codes of ethics. They have responsibilities under the Bankruptcy Insolvency Act, etc. And then there's credit counselors. Now, the thing with credit counselors is that it's a very broad spectrum of people. Some of them are sort of, how shall I put this diplomatically, sort of a little fly-by-night. Right. They operate on the internet. You may be, if you contact them, you may be talking to somebody in Louisiana or Germany or someplace else, because you don't know where they are. Mm-hmm. They hold out all sorts of innuendos or promises that, you give us $800 a month, we're going to solve all your credit problems. And 6 months later, you find out that that wasn't exactly true. We paid them a lot of money and we got no results. We're still being sued. There are other credit counselors that do a good job. They sit down with people, they help them with budgeting, and they try and do what they can. The biggest difference, though, is the tools that they have. The general credit counselors that try to negotiate your debts, etc., just do so as best they can. Nobody is bound by any of the solutions that they come up with, and it's very precarious. We see a lot of people who have gone through a year's worth of working with a credit counselor only to find out they can't solve the problem, and all the money they spent in fees and everything else is gone. And that's sort of sad, because if they'd come to see us first, we could have certainly put them on the right path. And it's not everybody that should go bankrupt or file a consumer proposal or whatever through us, but they should talk to us so that they know what sort of the rules of the game are. What can the creditors do? What are real solutions and what aren't real solutions? Mm-hmm. So if you know that, then you can make an informed decision as to what's in your best interest. And you don't always get that with credit counselors, because credit counselors, they can't do bankruptcies, they can't do consumer proposals, and they can't bind the creditor to some sort of repayment arrangement, which leaves it kind of loosey-goosey down the road when you think you're paying them off and you really aren't.
Do they ever suggest that the client contact a licensed insolvency trustee? Did they ever say, well, this is beyond our wheelhouse, we need to send you over to Leigh Taylor and the team?
Some of them do, not all of them. And the difficulty sometimes is defining which do and which don't. Mm-hmm. The problem with even with the ones that do, they'll probably charge you some fees up front, go through the process with you, maybe give you information as to what's available to you and what you can do about your debt. And if they can't help you, refer you on. But you've already paid a lot of fees to them.
And that's something that's special about a licensed insolvency trustee. It's a free consultation. You go for your first meeting and it's a free consultation. Here's what the options are and here's maybe some ideas. And if they decide at that point, oh, yeah, that's really all I need at this point, they can walk away and try to make things right on their own.
That's right. And that's a much smarter starting point with trying to solve the problems. And we've tried to tell this to people, but trying to reach everybody in financial difficulties is a difficult thing. Mm-hmm. So not all of them know what's going on. A lot of them listen to American TV ads because they don't know the difference, or they go onto the internet and check out and get onto various websites that don't really give them the facts and the alternatives that are available to them. So they may get themselves into trouble and cost themselves a lot of grief and a lot of money before they realize that a lot of this stuff is a bit of a con game.
And they're also trying to, there's pride involved, and you want to be able to take care of these debts if you have them. And so then all of a sudden people start getting rid of things. And they go, well, okay, I guess I better cash in the RRSPs to try to pay off the debt. Oh, I better get rid of my car, and I guess I don't need some of this furniture. I'll sell that. And had they only contacted an LIT, they would realize, oh, no, you do not have to do any of those things.
That's right. And that's really sad when people have saved their RSPs for their old age and they end up cashing in some vain, futile attempt to satisfy their creditors, not knowing what the rules are, not knowing that in Canada, RSPs can be claimed exempt from seizure. That's good for the economy. It's good for the government. It's good for you. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, the government's going to have to support you in your old age even more than they likely will.
Right.
So those are the kinds of things they should know. So that's why I say the earlier they contact us, the more they know what options are available to them, what they should or should not be doing, what the proper way to solve their problem is.
What are some of the questions you should ask when you're trying to identify which will be the perfect person to help me with debt? What are some of the questions you should ask?
I think you should talk to somebody that's got all of the options available and can tell you about them. Not every credit counselor has all the options. Well, none of them have the options because they can't do bankruptcies or tell you about consumer proposals and these sorts of things. So if you go to somebody that can tell you all of that, and you probably should do a little exploration and find out whether they're local or not. If you're in Winnipeg, then it makes a lot of sense to deal with somebody that's in Winnipeg, that knows the local situation, that has an office that if you have to go talk to them in person, which is always a good idea, they actually have an office, as opposed to talking to somebody whose head office is in Etobicoke and has never seen Manitoba.
Right.
That's always a problem. So if you look for that, you'll get somebody that's local, that you can talk to, that is available if there are problems. And sometimes there are problems in bankruptcies or proposals or whatever, and you'd really like to sit down and make sure you can get back on track. Pretty hard to do by trying to get hold of somebody by telephone in another province or down in the States who wouldn't return your calls. So you look at that, and you look at the qualifications of the individual that you're talking to. Are you talking to a trustee, or are you talking to a qualified administrator, or are you talking to a clerk on the phone because the other people are too busy?
Mm-hmm. And there's something about sitting face to face with somebody.
Well, we've found, and COVID has sort of screwed this up for a lot of people because nobody wanted to expose themselves or expose other people. So everything is doing by Zoom and telephone and all this sort of stuff. And you could do a lot, but you miss something. You miss it because you're not getting that personal contact. You're not getting that comfortable feeling that I can deal with this person, because over the phone it's a little more difficult.
Are there different laws for different provinces?
Yes.
Really?
Now, it's interesting. The Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act is federal legislation, so it's the same right across the country. But anytime that you're dealing with anything that's in provincial jurisdiction, it's different. If you're dealing with security, the bank has security on your car. Well, what they have to do to enforce their security is different in every province. similar in many provinces, but still different. We have something called the Personal Property Security Act in Manitoba that says this is what a secured creditor can do to seize your car, or the rules and regulations they have to follow with it. So that's considerably different than if you're in BC, for example. The laws relating to, marital property are much different in BC than in Manitoba. So if you've got marital property disputes and financial problems and everything, you might want to talk to somebody that knows a little bit more about the local scene rather than somebody that's going to give you general answers that will apply in different provinces. Even the laws that deal with collection agents. What can collection agents do? The Consumer Protection Act in Manitoba deals with that, and that is a different legislation than other provinces. So local knowledge of the various rules and regulations is particularly important. If you're dealing with property, real estate laws vary considerably. So it's a really good idea to know the market that you're in if you're going to seek advice.
Well, and I think that brings up another key point is just by hearing you talking about, you're dealing with divorce, you're talking about real estate law. There's many different places you're going to be dealing with when you're in some kind of a financial situation and trouble. So, and just by you rattling them off, it's like, oh my goodness, if you're dealing with divorce, and that does cause a lot of people to go into bankruptcy, you want to make sure that you get it right.
Yep. And that's one of the reasons you want to deal with an LIP, because we have training, in-house experience with all of our people. In order to get your license, you need several years of experience plus a sufficient academic background to qualify. You end up doing examinations and course of studies. It usually takes between 3 and 5 years to go through that. At the end of it, there's an examination you have to pass, and then you have to sit before an oral board where other trustees and lawyers will question you as to whether you know what you're talking about.
Wow.
So it's extensive. It takes a long time to do it. But the body of knowledge and experience that you need in this area, really, it's important. It's hard to get. And you want to make sure you're talking to somebody that's got it.
I do want to brag about you for just a moment, by the way, and just say congratulations on 30 years when you started LCTaylor.
Yes. September 8th, 1992, we decided to leave a different accounting partnership and focus on insolvency, helping people with their problems. So we went out on our own, not quite knowing how things were going to go, but it's the fastest 30 years you can imagine. And it's been just a very rewarding time. We've helped an awful lot of people, and I still run into people on the street that sometimes I don't remember all of them and they remember me, but it comes back pretty quick. And they talk about how things have turned out so well for them. They've taken that step and it's just gone so well.
Yeah, that's amazing. 30 years in business, and think of all the people that have gone through the office, all the people that lives have changed, because once they get this horrible debt and all that's associated with that off their shoulders, they can start living and being proactive again in their lives. Yes.
And I've had people come up to me. I had a guy come up to me one time when I was looking at, Best Buy at a computer or whatever. And he talked my ear off for 20 minutes, and I loved every second of it, telling me how his son had just graduated from engineering at the University of Manitoba, and he was showing me pictures, and he said it's all possible because we helped him get back on his feet financially and be able to support his family. And it's stories like that just get you excited about coming into work every day.
Yeah. Wow. 30 years just flies by, and LCTaylor keeps helping, and we should always mention the free consultation. So wouldn't it be great if, I know that this would be like a dream, so it would never work, but if we had a bunch of students, 18, 19, would go in and get some financial advice?
Well, I have been a proponent for getting this taught in high school.
Yeah.
You get 16, 17-year-olds that are about to become adults and go out and venture into the world, and most of them, well, they don't know how to balance a checkbook because they're not quite sure what a checking account is.
Yeah.
They sure don't know what budget is because it's never been taught in schools. And they really don't know what to do. What is small claims court? I don't know. So, and it's not really their fault. a lot of times their parents never got the education and don't know either. So it just perpetuates that problem where people get themselves into trouble and find out the hard way a lot of times what the answers are.
Right. Well, thank you very much for what you do.
You're more than welcome, Wayne.
And I appreciate chatting with you. And thank you very much for the information. Was there anything else you needed to share with us regarding, picking that best licensed insolvency trustee to help out?
Yeah, don't be afraid to talk to them. Give us a call, phone us up. We try to make things as easy, non-judgmental as we can so that we can find out just what the problem is, what caused it, and what the best solution is. So we're on your side.
Terrific. Great way to end it. Thank you very much, Leigh.
Thank you, Wayne.
My guest today, Leigh Taylor from LCTaylor, licensed insolvency trustee, and you can find out more at LCTaylor.com, and that's also where you can schedule your free consultation, book it online, or give them a phone call. Well, that's it for today's Debt Matters podcast. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts from. And of course, for more information, you can always check out debtmatters.ca. Thanks so much for listening.